I decided to make this video because over time, as my channel has grown, I now have so many different people on so many different parts of their sustainability journey. I asked over on Instagram what step of your journey you're on and found out that so many different people are in so many different places. And this video idea was born out of that, basically talking about things that you can do early on in your journey that aren't so different from maybe the lifestyle of a typical Western lifestyle, up into the things that I do because they're a little bit out there. I also asked on Instagram what type of videos you guys would want to see, and I actually got several requests for this specific video. So if you're not following me over on Instagram, make sure you do that so you can get your video requests in. And without further ado, let's get into the things that have a beginner swap and also a more advanced swap. Baby environmentalist wants to help the planet, or every environmentalist wants to help the planet, but every baby environmentalist wants it to be visual. In my experience, most people who are on the start of their sustainability journey want to do something and see the change that they're doing. And one of the ways to do this is while you're out in nature, when you're walking or when you're running, just when you're outside, if you see trash on the ground, you pick it up. It's a very visual and direct way to have an impact that doesn't require you to buy anything and doesn't require you to do a whole lot other than pick up someone else's trash that they didn't take the responsibility for. I think the benefits of this are completely obvious. By picking up trash, even if you don't think you live by a waterway or if you live by animals that would be impacted by that, when it rains, things get carried off of our roadways, into our ditches, into our rivers, and most rivers empty out into, you guessed it, the ocean. And the whole idea behind that is doing something that you can physically do and you can actually see. I find this is most appealing to people early on in their journey. So the advanced idea here would be to support brands that do that same thing, but on a much larger scale. Organizations, nonprofits, sometimes brands can have a much bigger impact than we can as individuals. And as an individual, something you can do is support those doing that work. On Earth Day, I shared a post of 10 different organizations that I donated to for Earth Day. Those are my favorites. Go check that out. You can support organizations that way, or another really cool way to support those organizations is when you buy something that you need or would be buying either way, looking for brands who give a portion of their proceeds to those causes as well. One of my favorite brands that does this, and I've been talking about them for years, is Conscious Step. Their socks. We all need socks, right? Socks are pretty much an essential. Conscious Step has so many different designs that are coordinated with a cause that you care about, and a lot of them have to do with the environment, of course, ocean conservation, rainforest protection, things like that. But they also have causes that maybe other people in your life would care about, even if they're not environmentally focused. Like they have socks for mental health, breast cancer awareness, all those sort of things. I think Conscious Step makes a great gift. You've heard me mention them in probably the last 4 years worth of gift guides. Now, the only caveat to this is when you're picking up trash, you can see the impact you're having and ensure that you're actually having an impact. Sometimes the problems with supporting brands that support nonprofits is they're really kind of shady, not super transparent in where that money's going, what organizations they're supporting. But you don't have to worry about that with Conscious Step because they have a whole page showing exactly where their money's going, what organizations they're supporting, and how much money they've actually been able to give to these organizations. Transparency when you're looking for a brand to support and give back to a cause is so important. It's absolutely not something you should have to dig for. If the brand that you're looking at is doing what they're saying they're doing, they're gonna be excited to tell you, just like Conscious Step does. Their socks are fair trade certified, so you can ensure that people are being treated fairly, and they're made with organic cotton, so sustainable materials. And then on top of that, they're part of 1% for the planet. In the beginning, it's really easy to do things that you can actually physically see, picking up trash and making a difference. As we get further into this journey, we realize we can't do everything ourselves, and being able to support brands that give back to causes that are doing that work is really important. So my environmentalist journey started way back in high school. I've talked about this before. I've been on this journey for over 10 years, which is crazy to me, but not to do a little hair flip or anything, but I was president of student council in high school, and I was also on the environment and energy committee. That's what we called it. And one of our biggest things was always going around the school and making sure that we put little signs on our light switches and told people to turn off the lights. One of my biggest accomplishments on the environment committee was getting the school to turn off the lights during lunch hour because our lunchroom had floor to ceiling windows, plenty of light. We didn't need the lights to be on. So I actually was able to work with our principal, and we did so many different energy conservation projects. And one of the ones was adjusting our thermostat. Obviously, that's going to conserve energy, especially in Texas. Now, I'm not advocating to make yourself super uncomfortable, okay? I can't be in a house that's above like 76. That's a lot for me. But bumping it up when you're not home is a really good idea. Bumping it up a couple degrees and seeing if you can handle it or if it bothers you and turning on a ceiling fan instead is a really good idea. Those are just beginner tips on how to conserve energy, right? That was at the beginning of my journey, and now that I'm in a different part of my journey and I'm actually able to install a smart thermostat, I highly recommend you guys check out Nest. Nest thermostats have so many great features about learning your habits and then adjusting the temperature as such. There are different programs you can enroll, like our city has one, I think it's called the Rush Hour program, where basically when demand is really high, they can adjust our thermostats to conserve energy. The thermostats can sense when you're out of the home so that if you forget to turn up your thermostat, it does it for you. You can set eco temperatures, all kinds of different features. Really, really cool to help conserve energy with the Nest thermostats. I'm pretty sure we got like $100 off of our Nest thermostat because the utility wants you to install them so that they can conserve energy, because as demands get high, they have to kick on dirtier forms of energy and the price of energy goes up because they have to maintain all of that equipment. So definitely check for like money savings with your thermostats if you get one. Every baby environmentalist has had a reusable straw. Like, I know the conversation has been you could just not use a straw at all, but like, you have one, right? I personally like drinking out of straws. Reusable ones are the answer for me. I find it really interesting to track what is seen as cool or super helpful or what's trendy, I guess, in the environmental movement. And obviously, when the viral video of a straw and a turtle's nose went viral, everyone and their mom was on the get rid of single-use plastic straws train. So obviously, a reusable straw is a good swap for that. And I think plastic straws are highly associated with when we think of plastic pollution in our oceans, right? And they are. One of the most common things that you'll find if you do a beach cleanup, you'll find a lot of single-use plastic straws. But as new data and information is coming out, we're learning that actually the majority of plastic by weight in the ocean is not plastic straws. It's not even single-use plastics, it's plastic fishing nets. And I could talk all day about the problems with the way we fish right now and the problems we're having with destroying ecosystems, apart from just the plastic of the nets. So as a beginner, using a reusable straw. For a more advanced tip, reducing the amount of seafood you eat. Currently, right now, the way we're fishing is literally not sustainable. Over the years, we have driven so many of our world's fisheries so low that we have implemented really, really strict standards on what you can and can't fish, because our oceans quite literally cannot sustain the way we're doing it. And by giving less money to those industries, or not giving our money to those industries in general, is obviously going to drive down the demand, and then drive down the amount needed to supply, and then drive down all of the problems associated with that industry. There is sustainable seafood, which I could do a whole video about, the problems associated with those. Actually, if you want to learn more about that yourself, you can go watch Seaspiracy. They talk a lot about the issues associated with sustainable fishing and how a lot of those terms are not what you think they are. So that's my beginner and advanced tip to basically contributing less to plastic in our oceans. Keeping with the theme of food for a second, reusable utensils have been talked about a lot in the zero waste movement. By now, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you have found a way to not get single-use plastic utensils when you're out of your home. If not, no problem. You can go buy those little travel-sized sets of bamboo forks, sporks, knives, all those sort of things. But if you don't want to invest in a lightweight set like that, or really the most sustainable option is to just use what you already have. That's always the most sustainable option. Again, these are some of the most common items found if you do beach cleanups. Always single-use utensils are on the list of things that you're finding. If you get more into the advanced side of thinking about sustainable food, we're no longer just thinking about how to avoid single-use plastic, we're thinking about where our food comes from. Thinking about switching your utensils, easy, simple. You know how to do it, it's tangible, it's easy. Thinking about where your food comes from and the sustainability surrounding all of it is not as simple. I have a whole video talking about what I eat in a day as a climatarian, you can go check that out. But I think staying informed about these different aspects of food, how they are sustainable, how they're not, where they're grown, how they're grown, who they're exploiting, all those sort of things are really important to keep in mind when you're living a sustainable life. Learning about what food is in season, learning about what foods can grow near you, learning about what foods have ingredients in them that have high levels of exploitation, like avocados and palm oil. You can certainly watch my videos to learn about these things. I try to educate on these topics as they become relevant and more information is known about them, so make sure you're subscribed to learn more of that. But there's so many different ways to learn, right? TikTok is a wealth of knowledge these days. I learn a lot from TikTok. Documentaries are really helpful, and just staying up to date on environmental news in general. This section of the video seems to be about food, but one of the most iconic zero waste swaps of the zero waste movement is, of course, the mason jar, or just glass jars in general. The beginner swap here is definitely reusing jars. If you don't already have a cabinet full of glass jars, chances are you're a baby environmentalist, because once you get to intermediate, you only know you've joined the club when you've got a giant group of glass jars you're reusing, okay? But definitely reusing is a sustainable thing that you should be doing at every step of your journey, but it's definitely one of the things that anybody can do in the beginning, reusing what you already have. And especially because glass has been seen for a long time in the zero waste movement as a sustainable material, but the reality is only around 30% of glass in the US actually gets recycled. It's a heavily resource intensive item to create. I get asked a lot about where I've gotten my jars, which honestly irks me a little bit. Specifically when my videos kind of blow up on Instagram or TikTok, people will ask, where'd you get that jar? Where'd you get that bin? Or all these things, and like, most things are secondhand, and I hate the idea that anybody is seeing something on the internet and deciding they need it and that they're gonna buy it. That's quite literally an impulse purchase. But the answer is that they're all reused. And mason jars' original purpose, like the reason that they exist, mason jars specifically, is for canning, pickling, preserving food. So I think it's fitting that when we talk about reusing glass jars, mason jars, we talk about food once again, but this is a little bit different. I think the advanced swap here is growing your own food, right? Reusing a mason jar that's meant to can your own food. Like, the sustainable option here is to grow your own food, right? But the point is, growing your own food is a sustainable option, but to me, more importantly, it connects us to just how difficult it truly is to get food to go from a seed to food. You really learn a lot about what it takes to grow food, how much work and energy and resources go into creating that food, that you start to understand the importance of not wasting it, making it last as long as you can, and paying the people that you're buying it from fairly. But I don't need to harp on growing your own food for too long. I think everybody watching this channel knows by now the importance of growing your own food. So definitely, even if you live in an apartment, get yourself a little basil plant, put it in your window, and start to learn about what it actually takes to keep those plants alive, because I think you're gonna learn a lot. It is summer, the very beginning of summer, and a lot of events happen in the summer, right? From festivals to weddings, parties, all these sort of things happen in the summer. And a lot of times it's tempting to buy a new outfit for each and every one. Obviously, that's not a sustainable option, so let's talk about a beginner swap for these events and a more advanced one. I just made a post on Instagram. I feel like I'm referencing Instagram a lot, because if you're not following me, like, you really should be. There's a lot of value over there, obviously. But I just put together a post on Instagram about free ways to get into the sustainable fashion movement. And I think a lot of people, when they come to sustainability, think, I can't afford sustainable fashion, it's so expensive. Because did you know that on average, people who live in the US buy more than one item of clothing every single week? So of course, if you're switching from that same habit and trying to buy something more sustainable, made of quality materials that are more sustainable and paid ethically, that the manufacturing is ethical, of course, if you're trying to buy an ethically made item every single week, yeah, who can afford that? Certainly not me. And one of the ideas to be a part of the sustainable fashion movement for free is to rewear what you already have. Break the stigma that is built in around wearing the same thing more than once, which I certainly at some points in my life have bought into. I won Best Dressed in high school by never repeating an outfit. Now, for a more advanced tip, or you can do this in the beginning if you really want, but it's renting your clothing. I personally am going on a trip very soon where I need a very specific outfit for a dinner that I'm going to be attending, and I'm just gonna rent it. I don't think I need to go on a rant about why single-use outfits would be unsustainable. If you know anything about the way we currently produce fashion, all of those resources that go into creating that garment and only wearing it once is incredibly wasteful. So rewearing what you already have to every wedding you have to go to this summer, and maybe next summer and the summer after that, is perfectly fine. So is renting an outfit that you will wear once, but then so will so many other people. Now, as a baby environmentalist, we start to think about every single thing we purchase, right? Or at least I hope you are. I hope you're being conscious of every time you spend your money, you are literally casting a vote to what you want to see more and less of in this world. That's how I think about it. That's the beginner idea here, just to be conscious of what you're buying, to buy less of it, to buy things that are made more sustainably, to buy things that are quality, all that sort of stuff. I think a lot of times in the sustainability movement, it focuses a lot on what we're buying, and I try to focus on things that we shouldn't be buying, right? I try to talk a lot about things we don't need, why we shouldn't buy them, why they're bad, why I shop secondhand, to avoid all of the potential problems that come along with paying someone for something that's not sustainable. But I think as the sustainable movement is focusing so much on where we spend our money, the advanced tip is focusing on where you store your money. So I have a whole video about this, about how you could be funding climate change and you have literally no idea. I'm gonna link that video right here. It's all about how banks invest in climate change. And we're not just talking about the status quo and the oil and gas projects that already exist. We're talking the world's biggest banks have invested and given money to fossil fuel expansion. And we're not just talking a little bit of money, we're talking billions since the Paris Climate Agreement alone. So I think as a baby environmentalist, you're considering every single thing you're buying, what you do and don't want to support. And as an environmentalist, even when you're advanced, you should still be thinking about that, of course. But once you've got that kind of figured out, switching your bank to any bank other than the world's biggest banks, you guys, is going to be a sustainable option. I personally bank with Aspiration. I've talked about it before. Like I said, that video, I'll link it below as well. Go check it out. I talk more about them there. I also bank with my local credit union. I use them for financing bigger things like our house, my car, that sort of stuff. But when we're talking about money and where it goes and how it supports sustainability or not, yeah, those are the two beginner and advanced tips. Well, I hope you learned something new and you're inspired in some way to help the planet today, whether you're a beginner or further along on your journey. And I hope this video is helpful to share with someone who is on either ends of the spectrum. Don't forget to check out today's sponsor, which is Conscious Step. I love them so much. I'll link them at the top of the description. And remember, until next time, you cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that you can do. Bye, guys.